There is a moment where you know exactly what needs to change. And it doesn't arrive loudly, but quietly, almost unnoticed, when you are alone with your thoughts and there is nothing left to distract you from what you already know. Maybe it's late in the evening, maybe the day didn't go the way you wanted, and for a brief moment you see it all at once. The patterns, the wasted time, the version of yourself you keep postponing even though you've already decided more than once that things need to change. And in that moment, the decision feels real, almost convincing enough that you start believing something has already shifted. You tell yourself that tomorrow will be different, that this time you will actually follow through, and for a few minutes, everything feels aligned. But then tomorrow comes, and nothing really happens. And that's the part that should worry you, because it means something else is making the decision for you. Not because you forgot, and not because you don't care, but because something inside you didn't move when it was supposed to. And that silent distance between knowing and acting quietly takes control again. This is what most people misunderstand. You don't struggle with discipline, you struggle with authority over yourself. Because the scariest level of self-mastery is not intensity and it's not motivation, but something much simpler and much harder to escape from. It's the moment your mind gives a command and your body follows instantly, without delay, without discussion, without needing to feel ready first. And once you see what that actually looks like, you begin to notice exactly where control is lost, even when everything seems fine on the surface. Chapter 1: The Illusion of Control. Most people move through their day with the quiet assumption that they are in control of their actions, until a small, almost insignificant moment exposes how fragile that control really is. For Alex, those moments didn't look dramatic, and that was exactly the problem, because nothing obviously went wrong, yet by the end of the day, something always felt off. As if time had slipped through his hands without resistance. He would sit there in the evening replaying the day in his head, not confused about what he should have done, but frustrated by how often he had chosen something else instead. He had clarity, he knew what mattered, he knew exactly what needed to change. And still, during the day when the moment came to act, something subtle interfered. Not loudly, not forcefully, but just enough to redirect him. He would open his laptop with a clear intention, feel the weight of the task for a second, and then, almost automatically, drift towards something easier, something that didn't demand immediate effort. And what made it worse was that he could see it happening. He would literally think, "I shouldn't be doing this right now," and continue anyway. And a part of him hated that, because it made him question whether he was actually in control at all. Which is a strange moment, because you're no longer unconscious. You're watching yourself lose control and still doing nothing about it. And the worst part is, you already know you'll do the same thing again tomorrow. That's the illusion. Awareness feels like control, but it isn't. If it was, you would have stopped already. There were days where Alex promised himself he would change, and by noon he already knew he had failed again. Not in a dramatic way, but in a series of small decisions that quietly added up. At night, everything would make sense again, and he would convince himself that tomorrow would finally be different. And for a moment, that belief felt solid, until the next day proved otherwise. From Musashi's perspective, this wasn't a lack of discipline. It was a lack of command. And this is exactly where most people think they still have time, while they are already losing. Chapter 2: The First Level of Self-Mastery. The shift didn't begin with motivation or a sudden breakthrough, but with a growing frustration that Alex could no longer ignore. The kind that builds when you understand the pattern completely and still find yourself repeating it. He started to notice that every failure followed the same structure, where a clear intention appeared, followed by a brief pause, and then slowly dissolved into an action. So, instead of trying to fix everything, he focused on something much smaller, something almost invisible. He removed the pause. Which sounds simple until you realize how often you rely on that pause to escape. The next time the thought appeared, "I should start now," he didn't allow it to expand into a conversation, didn't give it time to weaken or transform into an excuse, but moved immediately before the mind had a chance to interfere. It felt abrupt, almost uncomfortable, because it bypassed the familiar process of thinking and preparing, and replaced it with something far more direct: action. Not perfect, not impressive, but immediate. And that changed something fundamental, because for the first time the command was being followed without delay. This is the first level of self-mastery, where action is no longer something you wait for, but something you execute the moment it appears. But this level is deceptive, because it works until it doesn't. And this is exactly where most people think they've changed, right before they fall back into the same pattern again. Because the moment discomfort appears, the old system quietly returns. And this is where most people quietly realize nothing actually changed. Chapter 3: The Scary Level. The real shift happened on a morning that felt completely off. The kind of morning where everything inside you feels slightly heavy, slightly resistant, and even simple actions seem unnecessary. There was no motivation, no clarity, no energy to rely on, and in the past, that would have been enough to cancel everything. But this time, something was different. The command still appeared: get up. And for a brief moment, the familiar resistance surfaced, not as a strong force, but as a quiet suggestion, the option to delay. But before that suggestion could turn into a decision, he was already moving. There was no internal argument, no attempt to feel ready, no need to convince himself. The action happened before the emotion could interfere. And that's where everything changes, because this is the point where you stop needing permission from yourself. Action is no longer connected to how you feel. It becomes independent, cold, precise, reliable. And that's where most people become uncomfortable, because now there is nothing left to wait for. And this is the point where it stops feeling human to most people. There is no visible struggle, no hesitation, no internal friction to overcome, just execution. From the outside, it looks almost unnatural, because people are used to seeing effort behind action, used to seeing emotion driving behavior. But here, there is none. And that's what makes it unsettling. At this level, you don't overcome resistance, you ignore it completely. And once that happens, there is nothing left to negotiate with. Chapter 4: The Musashi Mind. Musashi understood that the real obstacle is not difficulty, but hesitation, the small space where intention weakens and disappears before action ever begins. In his world, that space didn't exist. And over time, Alex began to experience what that actually meant, not as an idea, but as a shift in how his decisions felt, how his actions unfolded, and how little resistance remained between thought and movement. He wasn't trying to be disciplined anymore. He wasn't forcing himself. He simply didn't question the next step. When it appeared, it happened. And that's when something uncomfortable emerged, because now there was nothing left to blame. No mood, no lack of motivation, no external distraction, only action or inaction. And that clarity removes something most people rely on: excuses. What replaces it is quiet. No internal debate, no negotiation. Just a direct line between knowing and doing. And eventually, this stops feeling like effort altogether, because it becomes part of who you are. Not something you have to maintain, but something that defines you. From the outside, it looks effortless. But the truth is, the struggle didn't disappear. It was removed before it could even begin. Most people think they have time to decide. He removed the decision completely. And once you see that, you realize something uncomfortable. You were never out of control.